All right. Thank you guys for showing up for our Sunday discussion. I tried to plan to do this topic right after our 10 Bulls discussion, but that didn't work out. So we are doing it now. So these letters were written by a 20-year-old Japanese girl. So she was part of a wealthy family. She didn't have a lot of wants because her father made a lot of money. When she was 2 years old, she became seriously ill and almost died. And it was a result of heart valves. And this left her body frail and pretty much for the rest of her life. She was sort of a sickly kid. And at around the age of 20, to cough blood and was diagnosed with tuberculosis. Her doctor sent her to bed and ordered complete rest for 2 or 3 years. Very likely, this prolonged inactivity is in its effect on her physical and psyche developed within her a sensitivity which was critical for her spiritual flowering. Her dad was kind of upset with her diagnosis at the age of 20, and it affected him. You know, he was really worried about his daughter dying, and so he turned to Buddhism and practicing sitting meditation. It says here that he was told of her heart condition, which could prove fatal at any time. She could just die at any time, and began becoming gripped by that fear of sudden death. He attained a lecture by the Roshi on this most fundamental human anxiety and how it could be dissolved through sitting meditation. In Zen, is known as zazen, and then through that, ultimately, enlightenment could be possible. With the zeal born of this overwhelming fear of his daughter's death, her father devoted himself to zazen, and in less than a year, does anybody know what kensho is?
Is that a form of a similarness to samiti?
Similar, yes.
It's basically watered down enlightenment.
Yeah, it's a brief glimpse at the nature of reality. So he attained kensho, and this experience banished all of his fears and brought him an upsurge of vitality and self-confidence that he once more took up his duties as the head of the family large industry enterprise. So he got back to work, and the strain proved too much for him, and one day, without warning, he died of a heart attack. So that's sort of like a brief summary of the sort of conditions in which these letters kind of unfold. The Roshi was helping her father. She started to speak to him because she saw the change in her dad, and having this constant fear of her own death, she thought maybe that he would be able to help her. So one of the the Roshi, knowing that her condition, she can't get out of bed, she's pretty frail, a little cautious in wanting to train her. He was very impressed by her genuine curiosity and enthusiasm to do the investigation. So the Roshi had assigned her the koan mu. Is anybody familiar with what koan is and or the koan mu?
Is it a type of practice?
Um, a koan is basically a sort of riddle that a master can give a student to solve, and mu is essentially another form of saying uh, of giving a yes or no answer. It's basically in the situation of, does a dog have Buddha nature? When and you're Buddhist, you would say mu because yes or no were both wrong.
So duality, double duality or whatever,
Sure.
not duality.
So he instructed her in this to practice it, instructed her to just absorb herself in it continuously, even while laying in bed. So this was a technique that she could use with her physical condition. With her father's death, the soul searching, it provoked her zazen, and overall concern with Buddhism took on a fresh and profound sense of urgency. She felt very urgent because she could die any day. So some 5 years elapsed from the time she began zazen in bed until her first enlightenment. So Kensho took 5 years, and that's her practicing extremely urgency, with an urgency of death at any day. This can give you a idea of maybe how difficult a true Kensho experience takes. It takes dedication and really wanting it, and proper guidance.
It was said that her father also reached Kensho after a year of practice. Uh, was there any difference in this experience, or?
Probably not a difference. I was going to point that out. Thanks, Alex. That yeah, her dad, it only took a year, but for her it took 5 years. And this isn't guaranteed. No, each person is going to be a little different. Everybody's unique, has their own past experience, has their own level of dedication, is dealing with their own set of mind and body. So to say, she achieved it in 5, where, maybe somebody else could get it in a couple of months, 6 months, or maybe somebody's been practicing for 10, it's never happened. There's no real guarantee. I guess I was just emphasizing that um, there is there does need to be a motivation behind it, um, and that you want to really be concentrating or focusing some part of your day uh, on this, and to try and make that as consistent as possible. So every day, taking time to really bring yourself into the into awareness, into the moment, and cultivate the quality, and then it will, kind of unfold in its own time for you. The Roshi has a very nice poem. I really like it. It says, "For 40 years, I've been selling water by the banks of a river." And he laughs, "Ho ho. My labors have been wholly without merit. 40 years of selling water by the river, and about 50 years before that, gathering water in a wicker basket." So we'll go into the first letter of hers. These letters are, it's very difficult for me to pull anything from them. I almost want to copy and paste the whole letter. Every single word is significant. And from all of my sort of research, reading into things about Buddhism, these letters are extremely unique. And they're unique in the way that um, the communication between student and teacher is usually kept extremely private. And it's not something that is really revealed to like, you know, the mass population. And normally, you know, it's not written down. So these letters exchanged between the teacher and student give a very clear window into her mind. And then we also get, on top of that, note from him about her letters. So the having both of those in one is just extremely unique. I've never run across anything like this. So the first letter is titled Evidence of Kensho. And so going off of our talk with the 10 bulls, this the third picture glimpsing the tail of the bull. This is where her letter falls into those pictures that we discussed. And I guess I'll just read some of the letters. I'm so grateful that you came to see me before yesterday. Busy though you were, do take care of your cold. Yesterday morning, you told me what you have perceived is still hazy. So I felt I must search more deep. When I awoke suddenly last midnight, it had become far clear. And then he notes, the ox has come 100 miles near. So this is just sort of poetic way of saying that much clearer perspective has been gained. And all I could do was raise my hands, palms together, out of joy, sheer joy. There are degrees and depth in enlightenment. And this is extremely important, something we talk about. We discuss here on the Discord server, we discuss sort of maps, and sometimes we discuss stages. And there's a little bit of a controversy, I guess, between those. There's not really any steps. You just need to, know that you're already enlightened. And this necessarily true, but it's neither not true or absolutely true. But anyway, her letter, she says from her direct experience is that she sees that there are degrees and depths in enlightenment. And then the note from that statement is yes, but few know. And then it goes on. Even you, my Roshi, no longer count for anything in my eyes. My gratitude and delight are impossible to describe. I can now affirm that so long as we were conscious of enlightenment, it is not true enlightenment. How can I express my gratitude for enabling me to requite or even this small event? So she's talking about this small event being this Kensho. The incalculable debt I owe all Buddhas. My gratitude cannot be put into words. There is nothing I can write or say. Write you now only because I think you alone understand my happiness and will be pleased with me. Now that my mind's eye opened, the vow to save every living being arises within me spontaneously. I am so beholden to you and all of the Buddhas. I am ashamed, quotation, by my defects. She's ashamed by her defects and will make every effort to discipline my character. And then he notes here in the letter, uh, you may have seen the ox clearly, but the point of grasping it is 10,000 miles away. Your experience is still tangled with conceptual thinking. So that would be the fourth uh, bull bull herding picture that he's speaking about. The next picture is grasping the ox. I am also determined to cleanse my mind of its long-standing delusion. You're the only person I can confide in. Everyone else, I am afraid, will misunderstand and think me boastful if I should suddenly speak of all of this. And then he notes, I am pleased with your restraint. Believe me, never in this lifetime did I expect to be thus favored she means in coming to enlightenment. I owe you so much. Uh, guard yourself well against the cold. I look joyfully seeing you on the 21st of next month. And then there's a general comment about the letter at the bottom here. It says, I confirm that she has truly seen the ox, for there is in her experience deep affirmation, the desire to save all sentient beings, and the determination to discipline herself spiritually in her daily life. Only such an exalted state of mind he called the mind of true children of the Buddha. But as yet there remains a subject who is seeing. Her mind's home is still far distant. She must search more intensely. And that's basically the very first letter. Any questions or comments?
So if I understand this correctly, he's saying that she has achieved what was possible, pretty much. He's just confirming it.
Yeah, he is just um, confirming Kensho or glimpsing the tail of the bull, which is the third picture of the bull herding set.
Okay, so we have confirmation. I'm really curious what the second letter is going to be about.
This is just glimpsing the bull, and this is
Right.
just the third picture. 10 pictures in total, but um, number 7 would be somebody becoming enlightened. So she's only on, you could say, step 3. So does somebody want to take the second, number 2?
I mean, I can.
Okay.
Okay. Dear Harada-Roshi.
1 second. The second letter is titled Evidence of Great Enlightenment. Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Dear Harada-Roshi, today for the first time I have attained great enlightenment. I am so overjoyed that all of me is dancing in spite of myself. No one but you can possibly understand such ecstasy of actually grasping the ox, and there is absolutely no delusion. And the comment says, now for the first time you have found the way, fully realized your mind. You have been delivered from delusion, which has no abiding root. Wonderful.
So the blue text commentary on her on these parts of the letter.
There is neither ox nor man. I ought to come at once to thank you personally, but as I must watch my health, I am unable to. So I'm expressing by letter my deep gratitude. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you and raise my hands gasso to you, which means I just looked up to I bow to you. Patriarchs haven't deceived me. I have seen my face before my parents were born, clearer than a diamond in the palm of my hand. The absolute truth of every word of the patriarchs and the sutras have appeared before my eyes with crystal clarity. No longer have I need for Dokusan, and all the koans are now like useless furniture to me. Even though I would save them, there are no sentient beings to save. Those who have only Kensho do not know the state of unlimited freedom and profound peace of mind. Indeed, it cannot be known until one comes to full enlightenment. If after reading this letter you still talk nonsense to me, I will not hesitate to say your own realization is lacking. And the comment, good, good. This is called the stage of standing on the summit of a lone mountain or coming back to one's own home. Yet I have talked nonsense to you.
So I
You
want to make
will.
a sorry,
Okay.
wanted to make a note on what they're talking about when she says speak nonsense to me.
Yeah.
What she's implying here that to is that to the truly enlightened, all talk of enlightenment is meaningless, meaning they see through words. So that's what she mean. That's what they mean by nonsense
I love
in
that.
part. Continue.
Okay. I owe you so much. When I reflect that I have actually fulfilled the great vow made by me through numberless past lives and can now hold Dokusan, I am infinitely grateful. The comment says, it is too early still. How many today among those called enlightened have established such inner assurance? I am delighted to see it revealed through your own word. My mind's eye is absolutely identical with yours. Neither Buddha nor devils can unnerve me. This state defies description. I have forgotten everything and returned to my real home empty handed.
I think it's helpful to because there may not be following to sort of distinguish when she's speaking and when he's.
Right. I just realized that.
It's all good.
Um, so the comments has the patriarch Dogen coming. This is the Immaculate Dharmakaya, i.e., the Buddha Virushana. I think that's it. Goes back to the left. My world has been revolutionized. How vain and needless my anxious strivings of the past. By following your wise instructions and patient counsel, I wouldn't allow myself to rest satisfied with the little peace still deluded mind which my still deluded mind believed adequate. I can't tell you how joyous I am and how thankful for my present state. This is all the outcome of persistent zazen, of determination never to stop with a small success, but to go on no matter how many lifetimes elapse. The comment says, your intense devotion and you, a lay devotee, is nothing short of astonishing.
And he makes that sort of exclamation point there. He's like, your intense devotion, and you're a lay devotee, meaning like you're not even a monk. You're just sort of a quote unquote ordinary person. He's saying like this is nothing short of a step. Continue.
The goes back to the letter. Now I can commence the unending task of rescuing every living being. It makes me so happy I can scarcely contain myself. All is radiance, pure radiance. I can now forever progress toward perfection in natural harmony my daily life. The comment says, "You do comprehend. This is exactly how it is. How many so-called Zen men these days have come to such profound realization?"
He's like he's questioning that, he's questioning that. He's like, how many so-called Zen men have actually even achieved, what you've done thus far? So in a way, he is kind of lifting her up, but it's because of his own understanding and uh, his relationship with her. He can tell that most people that go around talking about these sorts of topics, they don't really know what they're speaking about. They don't really know from like a direct experience that they've had, that they can speak from that place. They've only read or heard and then sort of relay that.
It goes back to the letter saying, "I have been resurrected, as have you and everything else for all eternity. When you read this letter too, I believe we'll shed tears of thanksgiving, not turkey." And it goes back to the comment saying, "I am so thankful to have a disciple like you. I can now die happily." Goes back to the letter. "Can understand my mind. Yet there is neither you nor me. My body and mind, in fact, have completely dropped away. I will try to improve my health, cultivate virtue, and be alert for the opportunity to teach Buddhism. I am in the center of the great wave where everything is natural without strain, never hurried nor halting, where there are no Buddhas, no you, nothing, and where I see without my eyes and hear without my ear. Not a trace remains of what I have written. There is neither pen nor paper nor word, nothing at all. Since it is impossible to talk of all this except with one who has actually experienced it himself, I had to write to you. I imagine you must be happy to have such a disciple as I, who have drunk so deeply from the fountain of your wisdom. I prostrate myself 9 times to express my heartfelt gratitude. Yaeko." The comment says, "This degree of realization is termed grasping the ox. In other words, the true attainment of the way. It is the return to one's own home, or the acquisition of. To advance one more step is to realize even profounder wisdom. This ox has immeasurable solemnity and radiance."
Good job.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's because Harada-Roshi said that now he can die happy. Is this because, well, he has taught so many, but none other have accomplished this stage, or how is this to be understood?
Um, it's possible. I'm not sure of his history and his students, but I can give you a sort of an idea of what I believe he's talking. Which there was um, a Zen teacher. Um, I can't remember his name, uh, that would not take students, but he was known very very well, and he wouldn't take students, and it kind of confused people. You have this great wisdom, and it seems like you're not really wanting to share it. And he sort of expressed that he hasn't found anybody that actually has the dedication that it takes to understand what he has. So if they basically doesn't he hasn't found any worthy students. This takes an incredible level of dedication. And one day a samurai came to him and cut his own arm off with his sword and presented it to the Zen master. And this samurai became his student. This may give you an idea. What he means by he can die happily now is that it's sort of rare to come across somebody that's so hungry to actually reach enlightenment that they are, that they will go through what it actually takes to obtain these realizations. Go ahead.
Number 3, December 26th. Dear Harada-Roshi, I'm filled with remorse and shame. My letter to you of the 25th must have led you to think I had gone mad. The response is, you need not rebuke yourself. The delirium of joy is the initial reaction of all who have had a deep awakening, and I'm sure we could all relate to the delirium of joy in our lives. I had reached such a peak of ecstasy that I didn't know what I was doing and couldn't contain myself. When I recovered my senses and began to reflect, I burst into laughter at the thought of how topsy-turvy my emotions had become. I was unable to appreciate the story of Enyadada. So it sounds like the delirium wore down, who had gone mad her head, and the great to-do she made when she discovered it, though of course she had never been without it. So she makes an allegory of a story. But I am once more myself, so there's no need to worry about me. I've always had feelings of anxiety arising on the one hand from the fear that my aspiration towards Buddhahood might weaken because of my insignificance and powerlessness, and on the other by the fear that if I should die without actually experiencing the truth of the Dharma, I might not again be able to realize it for many lifetimes. So she has anxiety that she's in a place where she could experience the Dharma and she might rebirth into a less wise or less aware realm.
Yeah, that's the main motivation behind, her striving, her dedication. She's worried like this might be, who knows
Exactly.
in the future that she'll have another opportunity, not just to be born as a human being, but actually to have met a teacher that could lend real guidance to her.
We're also all very aware the story of how rare it is to human rebirth. It's like something like if you rub a piece of rock, a huge rock, with a tower or something for a millennia once every millennia, or like something about a turtle coming to the surface of an ocean.
Yeah, these are both stories that the Buddha tried to put into perspective for
Like,
people.
too long to read. It's a long time.
Yeah.
So his response was, yes, it must be terribly painful for one having absolute faith in the Dharma to die without experiencing it. True. Only by feeling that way can one practice as devotedly as you have, which is why they say practice like your hair is on fire. But now that I have penetrated deeply and have acquired an unshaken aspiration to the Buddhahood, it is clear to me that I can continue my spiritual discipline forever, and in this way perfect my personality to its fullest, impelled by the vow which rises naturally within me to save all sentient beings, which I can relate to. That's pretty freaking cool. The Harada guy responds with, I'm overcome by tears, so he's deeply moved. Shear says again, I know of no words to express my joy and gratitude. Far from neglecting Zazen, I have every intention of strengthening even further my powers of concentration. He responds, yes, you really do understand. She retorts, I am profoundly aware of the need for diligent self-cultivation and thoroughly understand the value of Dokusan. I swear never again to write anything so pretentious as I did yesterday, saying that I'd become fully enlightened and therefore could instruct others in Dokusan. Sounds like she gained a lot of humility.
Yes.
Please forgive me, I was so beside myself that I simply lost all sense of proportion. After more sober reflection, I see that this was rather comical, yet what a precious memory to have tasted such dazzling joy even briefly. He says, Buddhas and patriarchs have all experienced this great joy at least once. She talks. I am choked with tears of gratitude, for I can now truly understand good and evil and can proceed steadily and without delusion to carry on my spiritual practice in and through my everyday life. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Do watch your health. I so look forward to your next visit. Since I commented so much, I would like Mike to read the general comment, if that's okay.
That's fine. Can. So the overall comments of this particular letter, the third letter, at this stage, one acquires what is termed the wisdom of subtle and immaculate perception, or subsequently attained wisdom. Her degree can be gauged according to the 5 degrees established patriarch Tozen. The depth of perception revealed in her second letter corresponds to the 3rd degree. And he calls that a word I cannot pronounce, where awareness of the one is paramount and consciousness is differentiation has subsided.
I believe also, by the way, is shocharai. It seems like very Jewish related word, and I'm Jewish.
Thanks. And that of the terror to the 4th, again, word I'm not really proficient at, hinku, wherein one lives in all things with no self-conscious trace of enlightenment. So this is a state where somebody lives within a very direct awareness, but has no conscious or trace of being enlightened.
Would this be considered a diva realm or below?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with a deva realm. It is a shift of consciousness or a shift of and it is linked to these realizations.
Okay, so you don't really gain anything though.
You you could say that you've gained the direct experience
Okay,
from the realizations.
that's cool.
Now it is possible to perform the benevolent and virtuous acts attributed to Fungin and Carrion. In Zen, this is the fulfillment of the vow of the Bodhisattva. This is living in the Pure Land. These are all Buddhist terms. I'm not 100% familiar with Pure Land. I know that it's sort of an offshoot of Buddhism.
So Pure Land is mainly a Mahayana tradition. It's
Yeah.
more like a Buddha feel, and such as Avalokitesvara and Manjushri. And you mainly go to these lands after you obtain Buddhahood. And in the Lotus Sutra, you'll see that a lot of Buddha's close followers ended up in these pure lands where time is different. So, like, one day would be the equivalent to years in another. And even more so, one day or in all the pure lands could be like a millennia right now for us. And they arise due to the intention and aspiration of a bodhisattva, and that's about that.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Comment continues, though it takes from 5 to 10 years after Kensho for most devotees to come to this stage, she has reached it in less than a week. That's pretty insane. So this is a Zen master speaking with experience of his own students, and possibly his own direct experience, that after the second letter, where we were talking about seeing the tail of the ox, that after that has happened, it usually takes a normal person uh, you know, uh, 10, 5, 10 years to gain the um, big shift of awareness. And she's
And
reached it in less than a week.
that's crazy too, because they do say it takes 10 years to master something, or 10,000 hours.
Hmm.
She must have quite either a proficiency or some sort of past life affinity.
I think that it's probably a lot of different factors in that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
you can't say for certain.
I think the is her dedication.
That is such an amazing gift she has. I don't even know if you could call it a gift or if you should give her all the credit, to be honest.
Well, I think that being facing the reality of death every single day, not knowing if you're even going to wake
True.
up tomorrow, is probably a really good motivator.
True. It's like the fire right behind you constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, you
But
right. You smart.
could one not say that none of us actually know if we're going to die, when we're going to die? It could be today or tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. We don't necessarily need to be diagnosed with a sickness to practice diligently.
So watch your back, everyone. Don't get too comfortable.
I think there's a quote from Gautama that says something like that the problem is that most think they have time.
Yeah. So the comment section continues as it is doubtless due to her deep and pure wisdom, to her vast and boundless vow uh, she made through countless lives and embracing all sentient beings, and to her having listened with a believing heart to every word of authentic spoken. Her accomplishment is rare in modern times. The remarkable story of her determination and zeal ought to be engraved in a six-letter as an immortal inspiration for all Zen devotees. I would agree. This is,
Yeah, that's beyond phenomenal.
like I said, these sets of letters, I haven't really ever run across anything like this before.
Quick question.
Okay.
What year is this from?
It is, yeah, 35.
1935. Okay, wow. Not that long ago.
No, not that long.
That is once in a lifetime person, I think, actually.
So we'll move on to the fourth letter. Does anybody want to take the fourth letter?
I have a question of sorts. It's pertaining to the to what he writes in the comment on. And, one lives in all things with no self-conscious trace of enlightenment. Uh, do you have anything? Do you have a? Can you expound this a little bit?
Sure. What this is pointing to is the once you've done enough practice to have the realizations to the point where she is now in the third letter, the motivation it is enlightenment, but it isn't. It's not something. Uh, this is very difficult for me to describe. It's more the moment by moment. So you're not really concerned about what will happen in the future. you're more devoting your time to the moment by moment in which your life is you're experiencing. So this is sort of like kind of brushing off enlightenment off the table. You're not really necessarily concerned with that because the what's happening right now in your experience is the most important thing.
It actually reminds me of the 10th picture of the ox, this Chinese Santa Claus, where I think that's what it describes it best, actually. This person who is, it was based on a real person who everyone knew him, and he was very giving, and he was living like this, I think.
What point are we up to?
We're on the fourth letter. Did somebody new want to take the fourth letter, or did Guy want to? We can just kind of cycle back, or I can do the fourth one, whichever one you guys want.
On for whatever.
I'll take the fourth letter. Evidence of direct experience of the great way of Buddhism. Time. Forgive me for writing you so often. I have attained the level of realization which is the last possible while yet a disciple. And he comments, indeed you have. She says, I used to think, how grand must one become one upon enlightenment, and how admirable is he who devotes himself so fully to Buddhist activities that he no longer thinks of himself. But I am so mistaken. From now on, I will cultivate more virtue and never cease my practice. Before enlightenment, I was so anxious for it and often thought, how noble he who returns home with peace, but having come to full enlightenment. So she's saying, like, he's how noble a person is who returns home, and exactly what Alex was saying, somebody who returns to the marketplace bearing gifts, with a peace and contentment sort of in his heart. He just, gives himself so fully after coming to full enlightenment. And in his Roshi comments, your experience points out the difference between, again, a word I've never seen before, Zen and authentic Zen. So there's actually a comment.
Can you say the word? Try to pronounce it.
It's Buji.
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 Ah, yeah.
Means something completely in English. Buji Zen is a Zen without substance, a Zen which denies the validity of enlightenment. Its adherents maintains that to speak of becoming enlightened is contradiction in terms, since we all inherently are enlightened. So that is exactly what I've been trying to direct some people's attention to, is that authentic enlightenment can speak about enlightenment, can speak about the steps and stages that they are there, and only by encountering and going through these steps yourself would you come to the same conclusion. So he's saying the sort of the fake Zen would say, oh, you don't need to worry yourself about enlightenment. That's sort of contradictions. We're all inherently enlightened, so there's nothing to do. But he is pointing out that there is a difference between somebody just spouting off that.
That does sound like a lazy answer, to be honest.
Spouting off that nonsense, and actually having somebody have direct. They would not say that. she says, I now say to myself, why were you so excited about? For I have a distinct aversion to being called enlightened. I'm gonna read the note there. There's a note on enlightened and what she means is enlightened. Since enlightenment brought her nothing she did not already have, to accept praise for being enlightened would be like accepting praise for having 2 feet, which is very true. She doesn't even want praise for the discovery of or realization of her own enlightenment. And then her Roshi's comment on this is, I'm delighted to hear you say this, yet it is only with full enlightenment that it is possible to put your Zen into practice in daily life. Another note, what he means by daily life, or put it in practice. Roshi is saying is that the fullest development of all the potentialities of personality and character can take place only after full enlightenment. And the letter continues with, I have utterly forgotten the moment of my enlightenment and what happened immediately after. Yet I can say I have acquired the true eye of enlightenment, so to speak. It tickles me to say to myself, so this is full enlightenment. I need to backtrack just slightly to what Alex was saying about, forget exactly what you said about where I was struggling to describe. One lives in all things with no self trace of enlightenment. So after we could say the full understanding or realization of what is referred to, that even that notion of enlightenment drops away. And then this is also what she's commenting on now, that she says here, I now say to myself, why were you so excited about? For I have a distinct aversion to being called enlightened. I have utterly forgotten the moment of my enlightenment and what happened immediately after. Yet I can say I have acquired the true eye of enlightenment, so to speak. And it tickles me to say to myself, so this is full enlightenment. It's funny because one can't completely say that nothing has changed. That's not true. But to say that everything has changed isn't also very that isn't also true. It isn't that these ways of saying aren't in themselves not true or true. It is that the words themselves in communicating this don't really
reflect what happened.
they don't really reflect the ongoing experience.
Okay.
So whichever way you want to say it is actually sort of true and not true.
I love that.
The letter continues, I can't tell you how thankful I am to be forever one with the true Dharma, utterly and naturally. That's another thing. It feels very natural. You could almost say enlightenment um, is the natural state for the human being.
There's an old description in a lot of Zen koan of it being ordinary.
Yes,
ordinary
natural.
Mind, nothing special.
Yes, exactly. But at the same time, again, that's only one side of it.
There is a lot. You can't be like the other metaphor where it says like the fake master will say you're already there.
Yeah. To say that this is ordinary, that is the sense or the feeling. But when you look around and you see everybody else and the way that they act and from the place that they act, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be ordinary.
Right. There's this book called The Blue Cliff Record, which is a collection of Zen koans. And in that, they make a distinction between living words and dead words. Dead words are people who just say things that people who are enlightened say. Like, for example, if you're not enlightened and you say, enlightenment dissolves, the concept of enlightenment dissolves, and you're left with ordinary mind, but you haven't experienced that or realized that, that would be dead words, even though you're saying what is technically correct according to the Dharma or the text. If you haven't had that realization, then they're dead words. So they make a distinction between realization and words expressing that or pointing to it versus words that aren't pointing to anything.
And she continues, I can't tell you how thankful I am to be forever one with the Dharma, utterly and naturally. At the same time, I feel so foolish for having been carried away by my delirious joy. This should make you smile. My delusions, quotation, about everything have positively vanished. But let us not speak to anyone else of this, as the Dharma must be respected. And there's a note on what she means by must be respected. Read that. This probably means that speaking of her enlightenment indiscriminately may lead to a distortion of the Dharma by those unable or unwilling to believe her experience possible. So this is sort of another piece of it. If somebody is enlightened, they're going, or I actually like the word awakening a little better. It's just a preference, but we'll just continue to use the word enlightened. Um, to find somebody that actually has had this experience and knows it directly, it's going to be very difficult for them to speak about it. They don't want to, just as the comment says, they don't want to distort the Dharma by having people who are unable or unwilling to believe their own experience, because it would take somebody either that is already known, established with their own enlightenment, that the public knows this person, and it would almost take them to sort of vouch for this person, to sort of it not be so diluted, even though it's almost impossible. Other people would naturally just, say, oh well, maybe he's made a mistake with this girl. She didn't actually experience this, or the way maybe she's describing or carrying herself is um, doesn't follow my understanding, which is most likely due to that they are at lower stages.
May I add to what you just said?
Sure.
I think that's totally accurate and part of what's being talked about. Additionally, I think if someone is talking about their enlightenment publicly in front of other people who don't understand what it is or understand that the words are pointing to something and they aren't the thing itself, they might hear those words and construct an idea of what enlightenment is and then chase that idea, which would be another type of like attachment. In a way, it's sort of a compassionate act not to accidentally bind someone else into this quest for like a false type of enlightenment, so to speak.
Yeah, there's so many offshoots and warnings and cautions that we could throw out about this. The trouble with raising the flag. Hey, I'm over here and I'm enlightened. That can be troublesome in the way that people would then look at this person as something special, and that person wouldn't want that. They wouldn't want to be special, because this again points back to um, they they feel natural, they feel ordinary. To even use the words extraordinary is again true and not true, but they feel like an ordinary person. And reaching um, this understanding in a natural way, they wouldn't they don't have an ego that needs to be bolstered and held up in front of everybody to gain any kind of praise. It's almost the opposite of that. They just want to, they just want to experience life and enjoy all the things that most other people do. They don't want or need any kind of praise or having somebody tell them how special they are. That was the old motivations. That's what most people are running around doing. They're looking for that thing that makes them feel special, and this is not that. I will continue. Roshi comments. Well, let me go back just a little bit because I talked a lot. She said, but let's not speak to anyone else of this, as the Dharma must be respected. And then he comments, Roshi comments, I am careful now. I speak to others about your experience. It may help, not harm them. So don't be concerned. And then she writes, I simply can't understand why I always made such a to-do about respecting Buddhism, since the essence of Buddhism is no more than living in harmony with the changing circumstances of one's life without strain or compulsion. What is there to respect? Uh, and then he comments, or his general comments over the overall letter, what we just read, evidence of direct experience of the great way of Buddhism. He comments, dreaming, certainly, yet as a dream goes in, it's not the commonplace dream of most, but a dream of tremendous and lasting significance, of an inscription in the Buddha Dharma. This stage can be uh, equated with the fifth or most advanced degree, called Kinshuto. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I apologize if I am. A condition of absolute naturalness. I'm going to say that one more time. This is the fifth degree, fifth and most advanced degree, is a condition of absolute naturalness, where the mutual independence of the world of discrimination and the world equality is so thorough that one is continuously aware. I marvel that she has reached this point so quickly. That she could have done so can be attributed only to her in Buddhist, and to her strong bodhisattva spirit. One who attains to this degree has completed what Zen practice can. He carried out under a teacher and embarked upon the path of true self-practice. Are there even a handful today who understand this? And that is the end of the fourth letter.
Nice one, Mike.
Thank you.
So, saying here is that a teacher can only take you so far. There's a point where you have to go on your own.
Yeah. So the truth is, A teacher is about a good teacher is about 5% of um, the whole thing for you. You are 95% of what is going to take you from 0 to 100. They are just simply a guide, a navigator, somebody who can point out traps along the way. This is heavily dependent on you. And then, of course, at the end, everything's abandoned. You no longer need the teacher. You no longer need to remember all of the things that you learned in the sutras and all of that. It can be helpful to help others, pointing out things for others and guiding others. But for you, it all becomes, like Yoshi already said, useless furniture.
I
Yeah, that
actually
was
just thought
great.
she was being arrogant there.
This reminds me of a quote by an old Zen master named Huangbo. Huangbo was the teacher of Linchi. Linchi was the person who came up with the quote, "If you meet a Buddha on the way, kill him." So
Oh, I've read that.
yeah, so Huangbo is very important in the Zen lineage, and Huangbo had um, this statement. He said, "There are no Zen teachers in all of China." And he was referring to this idea that Mike had talked about, where it's 95% of it is you. He didn't say there's no Zen. He said there are no Zen teachers.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially I think for Westerners, because we're so used to Westerners. I'm speaking of people in America. We're so used to teachers. We're so used to school, and you sit down and they tell you everything you need to know, and you learn it, and A B C 1 2 3, 5 plus 5 equals 10, and you're able to just they teach you this information, and you are able to say it back to them correctly, and then they give you a nice gold star, and you that's not the same thing in this way. And I think a lot of people from America are looking for that. It just doesn't work that way. A teacher is going to point you in the direction of, you're hungry, and the teacher is going to point you in the direction of a hot dog. They are not going to a hot dog stand. They have other things to do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they have to walk to the hot dog stand too,
Yeah,
because they're hungry as well. I think
right.
that's totally right, and I think it's important when it comes to, like, there's this old image that the Buddha, the OG Buddha, used, which is that it's a raft that gets you across the river. Once you're across the river, you get off the raft. You don't need the raft anymore. It just goes back to the way, back to the stream. But you're on the other side at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I use that analogy a lot. I say your oar or your paddle for your raft is honesty. How honest can you be with yourself is going to really help you to get across the river. Um,
Yeah,
and
totally.
yeah,
There's a very short koan by my favorite Zen master named Yunmen, and his name, I think, translates to Cloud Man, which I find really funny. Anyways, a student asked Yunmen, "What is the Buddha?" And then Yunmen said, "A dried shit stick." It's the same imagery as the raft. He's using something that you might attribute gross things to. And a little bit of background, a shit stick was cleaned, and you would use it to clean yourself up after going to the bathroom. But the point of the koan is not to say that the Buddha or the teachings or the sutras or the practices, anything like that, it's not to say that it's a gross, it's to say it's something you use once and then put away. You're not going to keep using that shit stick to keep cleaning your butt. You use it once and throw it away.
yeah, it's really good to have some background understanding to some of these things that these or can really throw you off.
Yeah, totally. And the koans and the Zen masters in China between like 500 AD and 1200 AD, they were really looking at this type of what we might in the West call negative theology or apophatic theology, which is and we see that with the Mu koan of like, does a dog have Buddha nature? No. It's a very interesting instrument.
Well, I think the as you put it, the OG Buddha, he spoke in this way most of the time in negatives because he never really
Yeah.
said what he pointed out what it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, guys.
Whoever's ready, they can continue with the fifth letter.
I got you. Evidence of attaining the non-aggressing mind of Fugen, December 27th. Dear Harada, thanks to you, I have clearly perceived that Buddha is none other than mind. My gratitude knows no bounds. This is as much due to your benevolent guidance as to my intense longing and striving for Buddhahood that I may save all living. He replies, I had not thought of you as one with such an unusually strong aspiration toward Buddhahood, which is kind of insulting. How undiscerning of me. It is evident you are incarnation of a great bodhisattva, which is also a great compliment. To be an incarnation of a great bodhisattva is literally like the best compliment you could get, to be honest. How can I ever thank you enough? Now I see that in terms of the Dharma, I must respect myself. Please point out to me what I still need to do. How thankful I am to have been able to purge myself of every iota of delusive thinking and feeling. This is a good question. You have not yet entirely rooted out your delusive feelings. Oh, shit. But one who is perceived as profoundly as you have is nevertheless able to live a pure life. So what he's saying is that you still have some things left to do, but you've accomplished so much. You're in a good spot. In spite of this, I wish to be guided by you in all respect, lest I mislead others in their practice, which is a good point. You want to be perfect. That's the problem I have. My mind state is quite different now from what it is at the time of Kensho. He's only seeing the ox. She replies, Indeed, the farther I advance on the supreme way, the more exalted it becomes. Now that I have accepted Tada is itself perfection. Wait, is Tada a term?
I believe it is.
I think they're referring to like aha, like ta-da, I'm here. Aha.
Oh, so I kind of got it right, actually.
That was how I read that, but maybe there's a Buddhist term that I'm not familiar with.
There's a footnote for number 20.
Yeah, I'll read the footnote for you. Quote, or quote, just, or quote, nothing but. Thus, if one is eating, one must be absorbed in just eating. If the mind entertains any ideas or concepts during eating, it is not in tada. Every moment of life lived in tada is essentially eternal. There you go.
Is this different than suchness?
Is this different than what?
Suchness?
No, I'd say it's the same thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just wondering. So I was like, that sounds exactly like this idea of suchness.
But I think it's more pointing out the fact of doing an act like washing the dishes. You're not washing the dishes and thinking about what you need to do later, like grocery shopping and what you need to pick up from the grocery store, and worrying if they have your favorite chip, and thinking about how long the line may be, and strategizing what you're going to do with the groceries when you get them home. It's none of that. It literally is just washing the dishes, nothing else. So is that what isness may be more of pointing to the sort of now moment.
But I mean, I think it seems to, I interpret those things as the same.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
You can keep going, Aaron.
Now that Tada is itself perfection, I can at least repay your countless benefactions, and I'm overjoyed. Having reached a deep and critical stage, I do need to see you soon. Excuse me. I wish I could fly to you to advise you further, but Since this is the end of the year, I'm extremely busy with affairs of the monastery and therefore unable to leave at present, which sucks. Forgive me for making this request by letter, but my illness prevents me from coming to see you. You must be extremely happy that I've truly graduated. Never did I dream that in my lifetime would I witness the transmission of Buddhism from a Buddha incarnate to the Bodhisattva Moroku. I would promise myself I must care in every detail of my life. I pray that you stay well, Yaeko. General comment. The essence of living Buddhism can be summed up in the word Tada. Who is Shakyamuni Buddha? Who is Miroku? They are no different from you, so don't worry about it. She has reached the stage of Tada. If it is natural, therefore, she could feel this deep joy as well as heavy responsibility as respects the profound Dharma. The actions flowing from such a Yuyan or Miroku incarnate, which you don't need to worry about. So before we go to 6, does anyone need a reclarification of what Tada is?
No, although I think it might be helpful to maybe explain like what Miroku is and the mind of
It's not to
freedom.
worry about it though, so.
Yeah, but it's using an image. So if you're not familiar with what the
I
image
just
is,
realized I'm being the false teacher right now, aren't I? Isn't
Well,
that interesting? I played
we-
myself.
We also have to remember this is going on YouTube, and there's going to be a lot of people that aren't so familiar with these terms.
right?
Okay, so let's go through it then.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
I mean, a lot of people might not even know what a bodhisattva is.
I think it's just a person who was attained Buddhahood in a previous lifetime and then came back to help.
There is an important element that they're here to help. They sort of
Yeah.
delay liberation, total liberation, so that they can stay and help enlighten other beings. So to be a bodhisattva is one of the most honorable positions you can hold.
That's why I said it was such a great compliment. Like, that's some real deal.
Yeah. And in some sects of Buddhism, they might talk about bodhisattvas in kind of a similar way that in the West angels would be talked about. Like there are bodhisattvas of that can help you with things.
Those
It's like a
seem
tool.
far more basic and uninteresting, though. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. So they're sort of, it's used in multiple ways, and you'll come across these different ways. There's used in this metaphorical kind of metaphysical sense of like an angel, the bodhisattva of compassion. And then these are tools used to talk about certain ideas. And I think that tool of like the Miroku is one of.
And what is Miroku exactly? Or who?
Oh, I think Miroku is one of the Buddhas that's either going to come in the.
Oh, Maitreya. You mind if I talk about that?
Yes, go ahead.
Some actually believe he already came, to be honest. It's a part of Buddhist eschatology. It's found in the Sutra and the Lotus Sutra, and he's referred to as Ajita. And according to the tradition, he will appear on earth in the future with complete enlightenment and teach the pure Dharma. Also, according to it, he will be a successor to the previous Buddha, so he's similar to the second coming of Christ. There is an exception, though. This prophecy of him arriving will only come when Dharma is forgotten, and I don't think we're close or even close to that point yet. And it's not just our world, it refers to the terrestrial world, which is obviously insane to think.
Well, and I would say that description, I think, is more in line with like Theravada Buddhism, but in more of the Mahayana Buddhist sects, like Zen being one of them, there isn't a difference between the Maitreya and you.
Good point. I would think that too if I knew more about Theravada and Mahayana, to be honest.
And that's the comment at the end of the letter. Like, who is the general comment? The essence of living Buddhism can be summed up in the word tada. Who is Shakyamuni Buddha? For those who don't know, Shakyamuni is as we already talked about, the OG Buddha. Who is Miroku? That's the Maitreya Buddha we were talking about, the one that's going to come in the future. And then this is very key. They are no different from you. Look, exclamation mark after both of those. Look. Very interesting. So don't attach to this idea of a second coming of Christ or Buddha. They're no different from you.
Very true. On that note, who would like to read evidence of the joy and peace of being at one with the Dharma?
Would you like to take that one, Arco? No pressure.
Sure, I'll take it.
Actually, you should do it.
I can
You're
take
being
it.
watched.
It's not so long. This one is titled Evidence of the Joy and Peace of Being at One with the Dharma. Dear Harada-Roshi, rejoice with me. At last, I have discerned my face before my parents were born with a clarity that penetrates from heaven to the very bottom of the earth. And yet I have never regarded myself as a desperate seeker. You and I have cherished a profound illusion that it is exalting to vow to rescue all deluded creatures, no matter how many aeons it takes. I want to read that line again because we were just talking about bodhisattvas delaying their all other creature. And now listen to what they're saying. You and I have cherished a profound illusion that it is exalting to vow to rescue all deluded creatures, no matter how many eons it takes. And then there's a comment on the letter. But one so deluded is called a bodhisattva. To realize that there is no one to save is real saving. The letter continues. Oh, how funny! Nonetheless, my respect for you as a Roshi knows no bounds. Indeed, no one but you can understand the import of my enlightenment. I feel it would be unwise for you to tell others that I, who have no dignity or stature, have become fully enlightened, as it may cause them to think lightly of Buddhism. Or I guess these are the blue as responses.
Yeah, they're his comments on her letter.
Excellent. This is a comment on her letter. That may be true from one point of view. On the other hand, many will be inspired to a greater effort, so there is no need to be concerned. The letter continues, only the exceptional few would not doubt my experience. What an immense relief to discover that just as I am, I lack nothing. What a joy knowing you and I will be together everlastingly. Buddhism is useless for those free of. I love that line. I want to read it one more time. Buddhism is useless for those free of delusion. I chuckle knowing I have always been fundamentally a Buddha. I haven't the slightest doubt of this. Yet I can tell it only to those whose enlightenment is equal to mine. To people of lesser realization, I will have to preach differently. With a heart full of gratitude, I raise my hands to you, palm to palm. Supremely exalted is the true law, how consistently reasonable from first to last. I feel this so keenly. With a peaceful heart, I look forward to the new year. Do take care of yourself, Yaeko. P.S. I can now appreciate how dangerously one-sided a weak Kensho can be. And then there's a comment to the letter. You are right. The enlightenment of most Zen teachers these days is of, but a one-sided realization remains a one-sided realization, regardless of how many koans one has passed. What these people fail to realize is that their enlightenment is capable of endless enlargement. And now, to live one's life as Tada is to walk the supremely glorious path trodden by all Buddhists. When one no longer is aware of the need for Buddhism, true Buddhism is manifesting itself. Should one, however, cherish even this conception, his life will become clouded with delusion. Devotedly wipe away the haze of such attachment, and your life will be perpetually suffused with the warm sunshine. Do you all have any reactions to that letter?
I have some comments, but I don't think I don't think I should say that.
Can you say one of them?
It's kind of just in regards of bodhisattvas and the um. Well, I don't want to.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I don't want to cause any issues or for anyone to feel as though I'm putting any teaching down or any tradition down. But
It might get way too good discourse though. Just remember that.
I've always found it kind of funny that in the tradition of Mahayana, that their goal, at least from what I saw and understand, is their goal was to achieve this level of bodhisattva, which would entail delaying their full enlightenment so that they would be ensured a rebirth to continue to help all sentient beings.
Yeah.
Can I comment?
Sure.
I think it's like it is and it isn't because I think they give it so much gratitude or so much uh, credit is because you're helping others. Although on one side they're not fully enlightened, so I do see where you're coming from. So it's almost like it's a step behind, right?
Well, I want to make a clarification for the listener, which is Mahayana Buddhism is a really big tent. Mahayana Buddhism includes Zen and Tibetan Buddhism and Pure Land Buddhism. I think Pure Land Buddhism, I might be incorrect about that, but all three of those manifestations are really different. And even within Zen sects that disagree with each other. So um, just to make a clarifying point, that there will be some differences on how bodhisattvas would be viewed, although Mike is accurate.
I think Mike is correct too.
Yeah.
We
And
should
I agree. I have the same reaction. That's what's really cool about this letter, which gets at the view of what sort of Zen masters talked about. What the first comment in the letter, but one so deluded is called a bodhisattva. One so deluded is called bodhisattva. To realize that there is no one to save is real saving. That is, there are no other sentient beings to be saved, and that is saving.
Yeah. So my I guess my trouble comes to the point of not that the aspiration um to delay one's full enlightenment so that you can save all sentient beings is wrong. That's a incredibly pure motivation, and probably one of the the highest things a person could strive for. It's the most pure thing that anybody could ever do. You're basically saying, I will sacrifice all um, all of my future to save as many people as I can. The inspiration isn't the problem. The problem is the idea that you could first delay your own enlightenment. That seems a bit silly that you think that you have the ability to even do that. And the second part is to save all sentient beings. That would also to include the understanding of there's a limited amount of sentient beings. So what are you really saying? Are you saying that you're going to, one, do what I think might be impossible, which is to delay your own enlightenment? And then you would also do that for an infinite amount of time. Um, because I don't think there is a limited amount of sentient beings.
You
So
don't think there's a limited or unlimited?
I don't think there's a limited. So I'm saying that there is an unlimited source of sentient beings.
What you could relate it to, just like the mind is eternal, so too sentience is, since we're all one and the same? Because I'm kind of confused, like where they're all coming from. To be
Maybe I could offer a quote by Huangbo about this topic, about sentient beings and the mind as one.
Sure.
So this is by Huangbo. This is him. This is his talking about the mind, the nature of mind, and the nature of sentient beings. And I will be clear to differentiate something that's in the text that can't be done verbally. There's a capital mind, and then there's an uncapitalized mind. So the capitalized mind is referring to something more like the ground of the mind or Buddha nature, something like that. This capital mind is no mind of conceptual thought, and it is completely detached from form. So Buddhas and sentient beings do not differ at all. If you can only rid yourselves of conceptual thought, you will have accomplished everything. But if you students of the way do not rid yourselves of conceptual thought in a flash, even though you strive for aeon after aeon, you will never accomplish it. Enmeshed in the meritorious practices of the three vehicles, you will be unable to attain enlightenment. Nevertheless, the realization of the one mind, capital mind here, may come after a shorter or longer period. So in that line, I think Huangbo is talking about what you mentioned, Cheers, which is the one mind. And I think it's also referring to one of the comments that the Roshi made. Let's see if I can find it. This is the last general comment. When one no longer is aware of the need for Buddhism, true Buddhism is manifesting its. Should one, however, cherish even this conception, his life will become clouded with delusion. Devotedly wipe away attachment. Such attachment in your life will be perpetually suffused with the warm sunshine spring, which I think is talking about what Huangbo was talking about, which is rid yourselves of conceptual thought. And when you do that, what manifests itself is that Buddhas and sentient beings are not different, in that your mind is completely detached from these forms. This mind, the one mind.
Could
That's what's up.
you there was something about something happening in a flash. Could you talk about that some more?
Yes, I think Huangbo was talking about awakening there. Mike used that word earlier, and I like that word too, Mike. I think that is a really good description of maybe our sense of it in the West, rather than enlightenment. Let me see if I can find it. Nevertheless, the realization of the one mind may come after a shorter period. Who, upon hearing this teaching, rid themselves of conceptual thought in a flash, which is to say, there would be those people who hear that teaching and in a flash are awakened. While there are those who hear that and may not become awakened in a flash. But this goes back to what Mike had mentioned earlier. 95% of this is you. So like, it's not the words that's causing the flash.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There is another point after what I did about bodhisattvas and Mahayana, and that is that achieving awakening and freeing your mind of the delusions, in one sense, it is you, this window of awareness that is very intimate to you, the one that is listening to this, sitting at your computer or staring at your phone, that you're free of your delusions. But more importantly, because you are free of your delusions, you are no longer imposing those delusions on others. And this is freeing other people at the same time.
Well said.
You're freeing them from your delusions. So we could continue on unless anybody else has comments.
No, I think you wrapped it up really well.
Number 7, further evidence of the joy and peace of being at one with the Dharma. Do let me write you often, she says. At last I have recovered my composure with the realization that Buddha is myself. Roshi comments, I am Buddha. I am I. I am selfless I. Another way to say that is I am, or just awareness, be pointing a bit more closer. You are experience, or that which is experiencing. And she continues, I have come to understand clearly the single minded love and respect I feel towards you. Already, I have rid myself of the smell of enlightenment. And Roshi comments, not quite. You are even now emitting an awful smell of enlightenment. She continues to write, and my gratitude to you and the Dharma is all the deeper. I feel grateful uh, in my own mind for the realization that clinging either to the delusion or to the enlightened state gives rise, in spite of oneself, to an increasingly uh, ardent longing to pursue the Dharma with greater intensity, so as to attain supreme peace of mind. That's a footnote, seems relevant. Supreme peace of mind. Number 26 is a long footnote. So long as our inner vision is out of focus and we are falsely see ourselves and the world as separate and apart instead of as one indivisible whole, we are deluded. This distortion, our basic ignorance, colors our view of and reactions to everything, in consequence of which we do not see, i.e., experience things as they are and their true nature. The experience of enlightenment, while revealing our solidarity with all things, thus bringing into accurate focus our distorted inner vision, paradoxically gives rise to a fine mist of pride in such an accomplishment. And this mars the inherent purity of the mind. So long as this defilement remains there, is lingering disquiet, but is very disquiet, acts as a gourd to continue practice until the attachment to one's enlightenment has been severed and supreme peace and freedom attained. So that was footnotes to attained supreme peace of mind. Roshi comments, one who never tries to perform various deeds, virtuous deeds, is called a Buddha. Attachment to the Dharma, however, is not a virtue, nor is this attachment easy to dissolve. And she goes on, delusion and enlightenment are equally offensive. You can appreciate now how satisfying it is for me to discover at last, through full realization, that just as I am, and that's a very, very important point, that delusion and enlightenment are equally. So this is sort of like the two extremes of the ego. The unenlightened ego, striving for uh, happiness in material and social gains, is exactly the same on the level of enlightenment as enlightenment striving to make that is they're equal in this way. Roshi comments, um, I know how you feel. Even the honored Shakyamuni clung to the delusions, tastes of his enlightenment for a period of 3 weeks. Unless you rid yourself of this self satisfaction, however, you cannot know the true Buddhism. That was his comment, Roshi's. She continues, the knowledge that my karmic relations to you is profound has made me more self-respecting and prudent. I've now had one great enlightenment and 5 small ones. I had forgotten who and where I was and what I was doing until today. Roshi comments, going not knowing one goes, sitting not knowing one sits. This is the true samadhi in Zen. Unless the ego is banished to this extent, there cannot be total regeneration. You have done well. Uh, Confucius forgot about eating for 3 days. So absorbed did he become in just his music. She continues, I had swept away my delusions so thoroughly and penetrated so deeply that I cannot return to my usual state. Roshi comments, let it be as it is. She says, I asked to have Dokusan with Taja-Roshi, and at that time he pointed out that this was due to the effect of my profound concentration. Roshi comments, yes, due to the force generated in deep mind concentration. She continues, I thought it might be necessary to ask you to come to give me further instructions. But then a deep insight came to me, and I prayed before the Buddha, after which I lost myself in Shang for what must have been 3 hours. Roshi comments, there is no need for prayer. She could, at last, I was able to return to my normal condition. The Zen I practice after enlightenment, fancying there was some residue that had to be swept away, was actually uh, desperate. It is clear to me that I can never dispense with zazen. I am grateful for the realization that to be just as I am, lifetime after lifetime, in itself perfection. In the whole universe, I am supreme, and it is perfectly natural. Roshi comments, among the innumerable phenomenon in the universe, one only is immaculately manifesting itself. What is it if not you? And she says, I am astonished. And Roshi says, astonished from the viewpoint of the delusive feelings. She goes on, I am astonished that I am the one, or sorry, I am that one. How wonderful, how marvelous. I am in good spirits, so please don't worry about me. Look forward with the great pleasure of seeing you again. P.S. The tears of gratitude and joy well up in me when I think that I have accomplished the practice of Zen from first to last without strain, that I can receive your eternal guidance. General comments on this letter. An ancient Zen saying has it that to become attached to one's own enlightenment is as much a sickness as to exhibit a maddeningly active ego, which is kind of what I was saying before, funny enough. Indeed, uh, the more profound the enlightenment, the worse the illness. In her case, I think it would have taken 2 or 3 months for the most obvious symptoms to disappear, 2 or 3 years for the least obvious, and 7 or 8 for the most insidious. Such symptoms are less pronounced in one as gentle as she, but in the same, they are positively nuancing. Those who practice Zen must guard against them. My own sickness lasted almost 10 years. And then he laughs.
I'd like to address two terms that the listeners might not know. Shikantaza, and the other is Zazen. Shikantaza is sitting meditation, and then Zazen can also refer to sitting meditation in a way that's different than Shikantaza sometimes. It's not clear to me if Zazen is being used as a synonym for Shikantaza here, that is sitting meditation, or if it's being used in the sense of 24/7 meditative absorption with your world, or what we might call mindfulness. But I put it out there for the listener to think about and discern on your own.
Would anybody like to take the 8th and final letter?
Okay, I'll read the last one.
Yeah.
Ooh, this one's about death. Presentiment of death, is that word a real word? Present, or is it?
I was struggling with that too.
Yes, it's a real word. I learned a new word today. Presentiment, an intuitive feeling about the future, especially foreboding. And this is the presentiment of death, or the intuitive feeling or foreboding feeling of death. All right, last letter. Dear Harada-Roshi, I simply must see you before this year is out. Come what may, let me tell you a disturbing thing. I feel strongly that the time of my parting from you is near, so I beg you to come see me at any cost for the sake of the Dharma. I ask this after serious reflection. I assure you it is not a hallucination. In this, her last letter, it is clear that Yaeko has a foreboding of death. In view of the radiant tenor of the preceding 7 letters, I was shocked and saddened by the ominous tone of this one. I had hoped that somehow her death would not come so soon. What a terrible pity. One of the sutras says that the ideal way to die is with an intimation of death a week beforehand, with little pain or affliction, and with a mind serenely unshaken, free from all attachment. This is the ideal cherished by all Buddhists, but its realization is far from easy. The patriarch Chuho once solemnly declared, I want to die with a premonition of death the week before, with my mind serenely unshaken and free from attachment to my body, be reborn into the realm of the Buddhas, so as to ultimately gain supreme enlightenment through them and receive their sanction, the better that I may be able to save all sentient beings throughout the innumerable world. Yaeko's death was in this spirit. Prior to this letter, I had received a telegram urgently asking me to come see her. I hastened to her bedside at Kamakura on the 29th of December, 1935. Upon seeing and speaking with her, I confirmed the opening of her mind's eye. She was in tears. So was I. I cried from joy and sorrow. For herself, she was not the least bit afraid of dying. Thinking only of the Dharma and the enlightenment of others, she was deeply apprehensive that her friends and acquaintances might mistakenly believe her practice of Zen or her experience of enlightenment had caused her death. Such an erroneous belief, she feared, might lead those not yet having true faith in Buddhism to repudiate the Dharma. If this came to pass, she would have committed a grave offense karmically, not only against the Dharma, but against those very persons. Moreover, she would be guilty, she felt, of unfairness and irresponsibility toward Buddhas and all humanity. These thoughts weighed heavily upon her. though she was willing to suffer rebirth in hell as a consequence of such a transgression. The thought that she might be instrumental in leading other people in the wrong direction was intolerable. During the course of the whole day and night that I remained with her, she discussed these concerns with me. I assured her that she had no reason to, as I would set right any such misconceptions. I had often cautioned her against overstraining herself, pointing out that it was contrary to the true law, and further, that those who have the will to do it can carry practice without straining themselves. It is not impossible, of course, that she could have unwittingly ignored my warnings and, considering her delicate health, sapped her strength by an overexertion which hastened her death. Her greatest fear was that the cause of her death might be misunderstood by people, who, laying the blame upon the Dharma and its excessive demands upon her, would come to despise it. Be that as it may, the virtue of her life lies in its sterling example of how it is entirely feasible to practice Zen properly and even experience perfect enlightenment right in one's own home and partly from a sickbed. If there be strong determination, one can always practice Zazen even with a frail constitution and without being able to attend Sesshin. This it is which exalts her remarkable experience and must be recorded in the modern history of Zen. Yaeko is dead now, a truly great loss. Her courageous life, however, is so inspiring and its influence so far-reaching that it is certain to promote the spread of Buddhism and benefit mankind.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And so ends the letters.
Now what?
Well,
Wash the dishes.
Yeah, gotta go eat food and wash dishes. If anybody wants any of the to discuss any of the topics, any points of the letters, share ideas, anything.
I think one thing I learned especially was the idea of a false teacher, or like the false Buddha. If you see the Buddha on the path, kill him. Like if you and also dead words.
Yeah.
That really struck with me because I see that a lot with psychedelic users, for example, do have these really intense experiences and then go the opposite direction.
One thing that I find really helpful when it comes to approaching Zen in your everyday life, and this relates to something like psychedelic experiences, is this idea that whatever you face, whatever comes in front of you, that is simply the content of your zazen. It's nothing special.
Right.
Thank you, Mike, for hosting this and picking the text and all that.
Oh yeah, you picked a great text.
Yeah, it's something that these letters are something that I wanted to go over a couple of weeks ago. Just life situations happened. They were me and Lauren we're going to plan to do them directly after our review of the 10 ox herding pictures, but it just didn't play out that way. That's why this week, usually there's a vote on topics. But this week I was like, I can't leave it up to a vote. I want to try and get these done as soon as I can behind those ox herding pictures, because there's a lot, there was a fair amount that were sort of linked together um, between the letters and the ox herding pictures. Um, Actually, a fair amount of it was skipped, and I didn't make those connections between the ox herding pictures and our talk and the letters only from the beginning, because she she moved so quickly through the steps that they weren't clear distinctions between um, the ox herding pictures and their steps and the letters. So the vast majority of what is contained in these letters is from somebody who had already achieved. I think I would say 4 or yeah, like around 4 of the letters. So half of them were speaking from a position that a person had already experienced the event, if you want to call it that, of enlightenment. So that also gives a really clear understanding and view into what sort of happens after. You know, the what happens after isn't, it's not all said and done. It's not all like, you know, you beat the last level of a video game and the credits start rolling. It's not quite like.
Sure, you keep going. Before and after chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking directly at the experience. It's more like, I would put it this way. It's more of like there is a distinction, there is a culmination, an event that one does experience. But then after that, there is sort of, I guess I would put it like this: the ego doesn't die so easily. It's definitely taken a um a death blow, and the it sort of arises um periodically as like death throes. So I hate to use such a gruesome uh analogy, but could see it like a hunter shoots a deer with a bow and arrow, and even if his shot is incredibly accurate, the deer continues to run for a short while. So this is the same with the enlightenment. Even though the final blow to the ego is this,
Like a headless chicken,
yeah,
but
exactly.
alive.
Yeah, so even though the of to the ego, the death blow has been uh, experienced, which would be the event of what one would call enlightenment. And even after the boat has been abandoned, knowing that sort of happens all at the same time, that there's sort of a realization along with and in enlightenment that has become useless to you. And so there's sort of a natural understanding that it's no longer useful to you. That
So
you
I have
don't.
a question.
Sure.
On the topic of the ego, is it one of the unfathomables, or does it have a root?
Oh, it definitely has a root.
Is it our biases that we can't help, or is it something deeper than that?
So the root is ignorance,
Gotcha.
and the ignorance is pertaining to exactly what you said. The ignorance is sort of twofold. It is the exact same thing, but it can be classified in two ways. It is the ignorance of the true nature of the self and the true nature of reality.
That makes sense. Thank you.